Deep in a forgotten forest, veiled in an eternal fog, stood an abandoned house. Its crooked silhouette loomed like a phantom, its open door beckoning those foolish enough to step closer. Eric, a young hunter, wandering these cursed woods, spotted the house from afar. Something about it called to him, an unspoken promise, or perhaps a warning hidden in the mist. As he approached, the air grew colder, the silence heavier. The door creaked open wider, revealing a darkness that seemed to breathe. Eric hesitated but stepped inside. The floor groaned under his weight, and the stale air carried the faint scent of decay. The shadows seemed to shift, watching him. A soft, unnatural glow drew Eric toward a room at the end of the hallway. The closer he got, the louder his heartbeat echoed in his ears. Inside, the room pulsed with light. A broken table stood in the center, and on it lay an ancient, dust-covered book. Its pages whispered his name. Eric reached for the book, but the moment his fingers touched it, the whispers turned into screams. The room began to twist, and the air grew heavy with malice. Suddenly, Eric's vision blurred. He saw flashes of people trapped in the walls, their mouths open in silent screams. The house wasn't abandoned, it was alive. Eric turned to run, but the door slammed shut. The house groaned, as if awakening, its walls closing in to trap him forever. Then a voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the house. "Stay, and I will grant you power beyond your wildest dreams. Leave, and you'll never escape my grasp." Eric's heart pounded as he weighed his options. The voice grew louder, more commanding, as if the house itself demanded his answer. "Power always comes with a price," the voice hissed. Suddenly the book flew open, its pages turning wildly, revealing sinister symbols that glowed blood red. As Eric hesitated, shadowy tendrils began to emerge from the walls, reaching for him. The house was no longer waiting. It was taking him. "Stop!" Eric shouted. "What do you want from me?" The voice replied, calm yet chilling. "Your soul, in exchange for eternal power?" Eric dropped the book and tried to run, but the house wouldn't let him go. The floor cracked open, revealing a swirling abyss beneath his feet. The tendrils wrapped around his legs, dragging him toward the abyss. Eric clawed at the floor, but the house's grip was unrelenting. Just as Eric's body was about to plunge into the void, the shadowy figure spoke again. "Choose now or be consumed." With no other choice, Eric screamed, "I accept." The tendrils released him, and the book flew back into his hands, its glow brighter than ever. The moment he uttered those words, Eric felt a searing pain course through his body. The house laughed, its walls shaking with sinister glee. When the pain subsided, Eric looked at his hands. They shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and he could feel the immense power surging through him. "Now you belong to me," the voice boomed. Eric's newfound power came with chains he couldn't see, but could already feel tightening around his soul. The house began to change. The walls shifted, and the shadows became more alive, forming faces that grinned with malice. Eric was no longer a visitor. He was a prison. "Your first test begins now," the voice commanded. The room dissolved into darkness, and Eric found himself standing in an endless void, faced with shadowy beasts. The beasts lunged at him, their shrieks piercing the silence. Eric raised his glowing hands, instinctively summoning a surge of energy to protect himself. With each beast he defeated, Eric grew stronger. But the shadows whispered warnings. The more power he used, the closer he came to losing himself. A towering figure emerged from the darkness. A shadow twice his size, with glowing red eyes, and an aura that froze the air around it. This was his true opponent, The two forces collided, light against darkness. The void shook with the impact, and Eric could feel the shadow trying to pull him into its eternal abyss. "Yield to me, and I will grant you peace," the shadow whispered. Eric hesitated, feeling the weight of the power and the chains binding him. Within his mind, Eric saw two paths: surrendering to the shadow's control or risking everything to break free. The echoes of the house urged him to choose. With a roar, Eric chose freedom. He unleashed all his power, shattering the chains around him and banishing the shadow into the void. The house began to crumble as Eric emerged from the void. He had won, but the whisper still lingered, a reminder of the price he had paid, though Eric had escaped. The house had left its mark. His hands still glowed faintly, and in the silence of the forest, he could hear the whispers calling him back. As he moved deeper into the forest, the trees seemed alive, their gnarled branches reaching out as if warning him not to return. Eric clenched his fists, determined to leave the past behind. But no matter how far he walked, the glow on his hands grew brighter, pulsing with unnatural energy. Suddenly, the forest grew silent. Not a single leaf rustled. Eric turned and his heart sank as he saw a figure stepping out of the shadows. "You thought you could escape," the figure said, its voice dripping with malice. "The house is gone, but I remain." Eric ran, the forest twisting and shifting around him. Every tree seemed to block his path, as if the forest itself was alive and unwilling to let him go. As he turned a corner, the ground beneath him gave way. Eric fell into a dark pit, landing hard on cold, damp stone. Eric found himself in a hidden chamber beneath the forest. Strange symbols covered the walls, and in the center stood another book, glowing faintly. "Take it," the voice urged. "This book holds the key to defeating me, or dooming you forever." Eric hesitated, his hands trembling. Eric reached out, knowing this might be his only chance. As his fingers touched the book, the chamber filled with a blinding light. The figure screamed, its form twisting and breaking apart. The power from the book surged through Eric, but he felt his own essence slipping away. When the light faded, Eric stood alone. The figure was gone, but so was the glow in his hands. All that remained was silence and the book. Eric climbed out of the pit, the forest unnaturally still. Though the shadow was defeated, he knew the whispers would never truly leave him. He walked away, the book clutched tightly in his hand. Somewhere, far away, another house waited, and Eric knew his journey was far from over. Far beyond the forest, a small town lay quiet under the moonlight. But deep beneath its cobblestone streets, something ancient stirred. The echoes of Eric's battle had awakened it. From the shadows of an alley, a hooded figure watched Eric's journey. Its voice whispered to the night. "He carries the book. The cycle begins again." Eric glanced at the book in his hands. The runes began to glow faintly once more, as if alive, and deep within, a new whisper emerged. "You're not the first, nor the last." And so Eric's story became part of a greater tale, a tale of power, sacrifice, and a curse that would echo through time. The whispers were far from over.